We were all fearing the rise of the machines, but maybe what we should have been fearing is becoming machines. So recently, I read the book Children of Time by, oh dear, yeah, that is a tough name. Adrian Tchaikovsky? I'm just gonna call him Adrian. Anyways, Children of Time is an amazing science fiction novel which focuses on spiders? Yeah, spiders. The book starts by following an ancient civilization of humans, ancient their time, future our time, who didn't find any aliens in the universe. They were alone. So this group decided to change that. They were gonna make an alien. They created a nanovirus, which was intended to force a group of primates to rapidly evolve on another planet so that we would no longer be the sole intelligent species in the universe. However, a catastrophe happened. The primates all died before even reaching the planet, and a horrific war wiped out this ancient human civilization. This experiment was then lost to history. But not everything died. A small group of spiders actually reached the planet. The scientists didn't account for these small, eight-eyed pests, and these spiders were infected with the nanovirus, which rapidly forced them to evolve, and since they were forgotten by the humans, they were essentially left to their own devices, and they evolved in their own unique fashion. The nanovirus was intended to force an increased intelligence in the population, but it was given a wildly different basis than the primate genes it was supposed to work on. As such, the intelligence it created was wildly different. They thought more in 3D, akin to their ancestors who had to hunt in a world far larger than them, in an entirely different plane to us. Okay, so this is all fascinating, and there's so much I didn't cover, but it was mostly just intended by Adrian as a thought experiment to demonstrate just how truly different aliens could be from humans. He chose spiders because humans already consider them to be foreign on Earth. Now imagine something even more, alien than them, but why am I talking about them? And what does this have to do with computers like I've mentioned in the title and at the beginning? Well, another key difference with these spiders is the machines they created. When later confronted by human technology, they didn't understand it at all. Using electricity and metal was foreign to them, and they considered human tech to be almost primal magic. The power to summon fire and lightning is what they called it. But the spiders were in fact still very intelligent. They just instead focused on another form of technology. Biotechnology. For most of human history, technology has been created to replace nature. The engine was created to replace the horse. However, what if instead of finding something to replace the horse, we used the horse to its maximum potential? Children of Time push this to its absolute limits by showing us the spiders developing a computer. But this isn't just any PC. This computer is powered by ants. Yeah. These ants were also infected by the nanovirus and evolved to be intelligent, but not in the same way the spiders did. These ants follow a fairly strict hive mind, simply doing what the scents tell them to do. Each ant on their own is kind of dumb, but the hive mind at large is intelligent. Well, the spiders found a way to trick their sense of smell, forcing them to do what the spiders wanted, and by creating a complex series of smells, they essentially turned an ant into a bit and the whole nest into a computer, which is kind of crazy. This was shown to be slower than our computers, but it made up for it with its adaptability. I mean, it is literally live. This is cool and all, but it's silly, right? A living computer? Well, maybe not. Biotechnology is nothing new to sci-fi, with even the Star Wars books having the Yuuzhan Vong literally grow their spaceships like plants, though I'm unsure of how canon these guys are. I asked a fan once, and I nearly lost my hand in the same way Luke did. Their ships do look super cool though, with some of the fan art being really fascinating. This made me curious, so I did some research, and it is possible for an organism to survive in space, even though every organism which can do so in real life is microscopic. To add to this, though, some organisms can eat literal jet fuel, so a living spaceship is potentially possible, though I wouldn't be booking your ticket for the Mitochondria Express anytime soon. While not really technology, the book Project Hail Mary also involves spacefaring organisms, but these organisms, called astrophage, are capable of converting light into mass and vice versa. This allows them to travel the cosmos at speeds close to that of light. Well, very interesting. No living being has really been found to do such a thing, thankfully. In the same vein, a favorite book series of mine, Murderbot Diaries, focuses on, well, a murderbot, a self-titled murderbot though. But the term bot is actually kind of misleading. Murderbot is more than just a robot, he has organic parts as well. This allows him to literally regrow parts of himself, and it allows him to feel human-like emotions, including anxiety, which is very prevalent in the book. Ironic for a killer robot, I know. All of these things have a name. Biopunk. Like cyberpunk, but bio. Very clever, I know. I didn't come up with a name. Anyways, while not as frequent as cyberpunk, biopunk is not uncommon in sci-fi, though the two are not really mutually exclusive. In fact, they often feature both. The distinction between the two can actually get quite tough at times. Are cybernetics biopunk, or is that just cyberpunk? Hard to say. For example, Cyberpunk 2077. I just heard the voices of 1,000 gamers cry out for how much of a disaster that was on launch. Anyways, it does feature cybernetics. Does that mean it's biopunk? I wouldn't say so. I mean, it is literally called Cyberpunk 2077. Like in 2077, though, biopunk is often featured in more dystopian situations, and nothing shows us more than the horrifying depiction shown in Humanity Lost. In this graphic novel, an AI that's grown out of control has used bioengineering to contort humanity into something barely even resembling humans anymore. It turns bodies into ships and into foreign creatures. It's honestly quite horrifying. This was most likely written as a warning about the dangers of technology. I mean, you could consider Frankenstein as belonging in the same genre of fiction, also a warning on the dangers of biotechnology. In real life, though, we have necro-robotics, a word which sounds like I made it up. It made the rounds a couple years ago, where scientists managed to use dead spiders to pick up a small object, which is slightly terrifying. I know, I'm talking about spiders again. It wasn't intentional, I promise. Anyways, it turns out spiders' legs work on hydraulics, which sounds a bit over-engineered in my opinion. Nonetheless, we humans understand how hydraulics work, so we can use this. And spiders have spent millions of years developing the ability to stick to walls to climb. So why not use the work that's already been done? It would have been hard to develop such a precise hydraulic system ourselves. So let's not. While all of this is cool or horrifying, depends on how you look at it, really, it's not actually what I initially wanted to discuss. I mean, what does this have to do with the random ant computer that I mentioned at the start? Well, what if we used the same idea of using precisely evolved biology as our technology? And what if we did this with a computer? A computer that uses neurons instead of transistors. Well, this is called a wetware computer. Wetware is like the biological amalgamation of software and hardware, with neither being truly distinguishable from each other, as the signals in neurons are affected by things like neuron composition and chemicals in the brain. Thus, there's a complex relation between what we might call software and what we might call hardware. However, this leads into one of the first problems with this concept. Biological mechanisms are complicated, to say the least. Computers were built from the ground up by humans to be understandable by humans, but organisms were not. For example, there are situations where in the human body, to reduce one chemical or hormone, you would create a second one to reduce the amount of the first. But what if the body wants more of the first one? Well, make more of it or make less of the second one, right? Well, no. Make more of a third one to make less of the second one to make more of the first one. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, throwing a bit of a wrench into our biological computer. However, this isn't to say it isn't possible. Enter William Ditto, a professor at the University of North Carolina, and an artificial intelligence and computing professor. Ditto has made so much progress in the world of biological computing. Ditto managed to create a computer out of leech neurons, which is as crazy as it sounds. He managed to get the neurons to add 6 plus 2. A huge W, I know. It's not a lot, but it is something, and it's really impressive. He believes that we might as well use the millions of years of evolution in organic neurons. They've evolved for so long to be compact and energy efficient. So let's use it. If you remember, this sounds familiar to when I discussed necrorobotics earlier. This leech experiment isn't the only one, however. Do you guys remember when people were talking about how it would take 16 billion crabs to run Doom? Well, this is also a kind of biological computer. However, instead of scanning the neurons directly, they would simply detect how crabs would interact with each other, and with outside stimulation, they found that when crab groups run into each other, their velocities would combine. Then, by crafting specific geometry, they can create simple logic gates. So with enough crabs, you could theoretically create a simple computer. Well, this is a bit silly. It does sound a bit like our ant computer, doesn't it? But why? Why do all this? Well, enter organoid intelligence. Organoid intelligence is the most likely end result of all this. Organoid intelligence is when lab-grown human brain cells are read, interpreted, and stimulated by a machine, creating a computer. Sounds kind of insane, doesn't it? However, it's important to note that as of right now, it's not quite feasible. This is due to 2 things. First of all, it would require a complex AI to interpret human brain signals into digital computing. Ironic, I know, that in order to use human intelligence, you'd first need artificial intelligence. To be fair, it would be pretty complicated. I mean, you are basically making a mind-reading device. Second of all, though, the brain relies on more than just signals. There's chemicals and organic compounds in there as well, meaning it would require a lot more than a simple computer chip would. But I still haven't answered why. Well, for right now, it's mostly just an idea used to study the human brain and how it works, but theoretically in the future, it could offer very energy-efficient computing and vast data storage. I mean, think of how many memories a human brain can store. It's a lot. Supposedly it's around 2.5 million gigabytes of storage, which is insane. But on top of all of this, it should allow for dynamic computing. The ability to adapt and to change itself. I mean, the same way humans can adapt. Allowing for new neural pathways and for the computer to literally rebuild itself to be more efficient. Something current computers couldn't even dream of. But would you look at that? That's exactly what Adrian proposed in these ant computers from Children of Time, isn't it? Adaptable computers. So is it possible? Yeah, it should be. But again, it's not only difficult, but ethically questionable. I mean, you're literally growing a human brain in a lab. Of course it's questionable. Also, in my research, I found that people were considering if the organoid intelligence is someone's child, considering someone has to donate stem cells to create it. Man, that could be complicated. I mean, just imagine. Would they have to pay child support? And then what if... Thanks for the listen, and this was Boulder, your online friend. Okay, so here's just some final, less interesting remarks I had. Well, I did kind of make a joke about it. The research William Ditto did and is doing is absolutely fascinating and is some real cutting-edge stuff. Check him out if you found all this cool. Also, if any of the things I mentioned here sound cool, go check them out. I'm personally a huge fan of Murderbot Diaries, Children of Time, and Project Hail Mary, so take a look at those. Adjacently, I did kind of want to bring up I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, but Humanity Lost felt similar and I didn't want to stay there for too long. They both have interesting ideas of biotechnology. This is just the research I found, so do your own if you want to learn more, and correct me if you think I made a mistake. Anyways, I've said enough. Now, I'm going to need you to subscribe to me to prevent organic Skynet.